And as we mentioned, all of this is the backdrop as the presidents of Russia and Ukraine meet for their first talks since June 6. But with accusations that Russia is sending tanks and soldiers across the border and the dissolution of the Ukrainian government, will the rare talks stand any chance of ending 5 months of fighting? Joining us now is James Jatras, Deputy Director of the American Institute in Ukraine, a policy institute here in Washington, D.C. So let me put the question to you. What do you make of the summit in Minsk? Can we expect much out of it?
Well, you know, for the first time, I'm actually becoming slightly optimistic here. I think the change in the military situation in eastern Ukraine actually might help force President Poroshenko into a position where he has to negotiate, where he sees that he cannot expect a purely military solution to this. So to that extent, perhaps we have some small reason to hope for something.
So what would you hope for? As you're saying, small reason to hope, what would your hope be?
At best, a ceasefire, negotiations, the path that's been open from the beginning of this crisis, a neutral status for Ukraine, regionalization, federalization, status for the Russian language, something that Kiev has been resisting from the beginning, insisting they can simply conquer the eastern population and force them to submit to a government that they don't accept.
Poroshenko's comments, we just played them. I thought maybe I just cribbed just a little bit of it. A lot of the deputies who attend or do not attend parliament sessions are either direct sponsors and accomplices or supporters of rebels and terrorists. Pretty strong words. What was your thoughts about him and his move today?
Well, I think it's looking increasingly desperate, not only politically with regard to his relationship to the Rada, but also the direction that the economy is going in, and as I say then, the military situation in the East. And, you know, they keep coming out with all of these accusations. Well, the Russians are crossing the border here, the Russians are crossing the border there. We have put our troops into downtown Lugansk, and nobody can ever confirm these things. I don't think they want to admit that there's a large part of the population of this country that they're hitting with artillery, with aircraft bombing and so forth, that simply does not accept his authority.
What about this convoy? I mean, there were two competing narratives. One was that they're trying to sneak weapons in. The other was, you know, you heard from the ambassador at the UN last week. Look, we can't have fights with baby food. We're trying to get stuff to people who are obviously living in a siege. And it gets kind of back to what you were saying earlier. We keep hearing every side seems to be winning this battle of public relations. But what was your takeaway from that?
Look, there's 100 kilometers of border between Russia and Ukraine that Kiev does not control. If the Russians want to move weapons in, they can do that. They don't need this white humanitarian convoy to do that. Lots of media looked at these trucks. They invited Kiev officials to inspect the trucks, the Red Cross. If they wanted to bring weapons in, this was not the way to do it. I think what they did establish is that the Russian side, is that they're willing to take decisive action, even in violation of Ukraine's sovereignty, to bring humanitarian relief in if Kiev is going to throw obstacles in the path of helping the people that are under siege.
And that was one of the other things that the ambassador mentioned, was that they had tried and tried and there was nothing but red tape, and that they were trying to get these goods to these people who were without water, without food, without supplies.
Exactly right. And I understand that Foreign Minister Lavrov has said they may send another convoy in this week. At the same time,
how's that going to be accepted, do you think?
I think it really throws the ball back into Kiev's court. You know, when the first convoy came, for the first time we started to hear from Kiev, oh yes, we need to send humanitarian relief in. Where were they a week or 2 weeks or a month before? Why weren't they launching their own relief mission? Why were they calling the international community to come in? Because they want to hide the really desperate circumstance of several 100,000 people that are being attacked by their own government.
What should we watch for tomorrow in this meeting?
I think the real question is the Europeans. Will the Europeans put the arm on Poroshenko to say, stop this, stop trying to achieve a military solution. You need to have a ceasefire, you need to negotiate. Because I think the Europeans are getting near the end of the rope too. Washington has frog-marched them into a situation where they're hurting their own economic interests, picking a fight with Russia, and contributing to an escalation of the conflict in Ukraine. And I don't think the Europeans like it.
All right, Jim, thanks so much for coming in. Certainly appreciate it.
Thank you.